Hi, I'm Acoustic Guitar contributing editor Sean McGowan. In this weekly workout, Picking Hand Power, we're going to explore a variety of exercises built for fingerstyle development. However, I'd just like to offer to you, before we get started with this lesson, that all of these exercises are totally applicable to using just a pick or a pick and fingers hybrid style. So you can get a killer flat picking workout by doing all of these exercises with just the pick or the pick and fingers. So you're actually getting 3 for 1 with all of these exercises. So let's go ahead and get started with week 1. Our fingers warmed up on the strings. So with example 1A, we're going to be playing through 4-part chords. So we just want to essentially rest the 4 fingers, which would be P, I, M, A, or thumb, index, middle, ring, on the middle string set here. The first chord is the C major 7. And essentially your thumb and fingers are just poised, they're just resting on the strings, and the first thing to do is just get a nice, even, clear sound, making sure that every note can be heard in the chord voicing. And just a simple claw pluck. So example 1A is 3, 4. And as a variation, you could also include the pinky in here as well. So instead of using thumb and 3 fingers, you could do the same exercise with all 4 fingers of the picking hand. So that would be index, middle, ring, and then the pinky on the B string. And you notice you'll actually get a slightly different tone. So I would encourage you to try both of those variations for all of these exercises. Okay, in example 1B, we're going to take it a step further. We're going to use the same 4 chord voicings, and it's essentially the same exercise, but now we're going to be playing 8th notes, so there's a little bit more velocity with the right hand. So here we go. 2 and 3 and 4 and... You can also do the same exercise with the 4 fingers again, like we did with example 1A. So that would be 3 and 4 and. And a couple of things that you can try when you're playing this exercise. Of course, you can vary the tempo. Start out slow and then build it up, because you want to make sure that you can hear each of the 4 notes. So one thing that you might want to try doing is singing each note in the chord. Just pick a random note and focus your ears on that, and you can help, singing along will help you do that. For example, if we have this first chord voicing, I can isolate the top voice, which would be this note. So really hone in on that note. So we're hearing. And similarly, we could take the second note from the top, which would be B, going to an A. So that's a little exercise you can do just to make sure that you're bringing out all of the notes in the voicing. Another thing that you can do is add some dynamics. So you can add some crescendos and decrescendos. So it would be something like... so on and so forth. You're still doing the physical action of plucking the strings, but now you're adding an element of musicality to it through dynamics. In example 2, we're going to expand our chord voicings to 5 notes or 5 strings. So now we're going to be using all of the fingers on the picking hand, thumb right through the pinky. But it's the same thing. You just basically have them resting on the strings, ready to pluck. So here's example 2. 3 and... And of course you can do the 8th note variations as we did with example 1B. Okay, example 2B now expands it to a 6-note voicing. Each chord is a 6-note and a 6-string voicing. So the way to do this, I found one way, is to take the 4 fingers on the top 4 strings from D to the high E and then the thumb will basically pluck the bottom two strings at the same time. So the first G chord, which is just a basic bar chord fingering, you have this to get a plucking sound. The thumb is just snapping down on the bottom two strings, and then the fingers are plucking the other respective strings. So that example is 3, 4. Alright, in the next example, example 3A, we're going to add just a little bit of rhythmic variation, and we're also going to be separating the thumb from the fingers. So we're going to be using the same 4 chords from the earlier exercise, but now we're just going to add some separation and some rhythmic syncopation to the exercise. So here it is. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Example 3B is a slight variation on that. Now we're going to be alternating and playing the lowest and higher, the upper note and the voicing together, and then play the 2 inside voices or the 2 middle voices on the offbeat. So now the pattern will be thumb with ring finger or P and A, and then I and M or index and middle together. Notice the left hand doesn't change at all. You're just still basically playing the same 4 chord voicings. So here's example 3B. 2 and 3 and 4 and... In example 3D, we're going to expand our voicing again to 5 notes, and we're going to do the same exercise as 3A, but now we're just adding the pinky on the high E string. So here it is, 2 and 3 and 4 and... Example 3E is sort of like the variation that we explored in example 3B and 3C. We have the lowest note and the highest note, this time played with the thumb and the pinky on top, and then the chord, the 3 middle notes, played with I, M, A. So here's example 3E, 2 and 3 and 4 and... In week 2, we're going to explore some more traditional fingerstyle exercises, and those are basically playing arpeggios across the strings. There are lots of different variations that you can get into with the picking hand, and we're going to start out with probably the most basic one, which is just simply a low to high arpeggio, P, I, M, A on each string. And we're just going to start out with open strings. So in these four measures of example 4, we're going to do P, I, M, A on the middle 4 strings, and then on the A string of the top 3 strings, and then we're going to do a slight variation, still using open strings, with P, M, I, A, just for some variation, starting out in the middle strings again, and then on the top 3 combined with the A string. So here are those 4 variations together. 3E and 4E and... In example 5A and 5B, we're going to explore these same variations with the picking hand, but now adding some chords to it. So here's example 5A, 3E and 4E and... side B is the same variation that we explored in example 4, alternating now to P, M, I, A. So here are those same 4 chords with that variation. 3E and 4E and Alright, and to wrap up week 2, we're going to check out example 6 here. This is an exercise I just call double arpeggios, and all they are is basically doing some sort of an arpeggiated type of figure with 2 notes at a time. So it's kind of like playing double stops through arpeggios. So in this example, we're just going to take an A minor 7 chord and go back and forth with pairs of notes between the D and B strings and then the E and G strings. And there are different ways to finger this with your picking hand, but probably the easiest way is to just start out doing the chord pluck and then bounce back and forth between the thumb and the index finger and the thumb in the middle on the 2 high strings. So that would be index and middle. Of course, you could experiment with using your ring finger as well. Try them both and see what works for you. But this exercise, to start out with initially, your variation will be between PI and PM for the top 2 strings. So here's example 6, the first bar. And the next 2 bars in 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, and so you can see in that last example, I actually alternated when I did the notes on the G and E strings, which are actually just open G and open E. I alternated between P and middle, thumb and middle, and thumb and ring. And it's up to you, but one of the reasons why I like to use my ring finger in that exercise is because the pattern started with the high E and G string. So in order to emphasize that, sometimes the ring finger can come in handy. But you decide what works best for you.